Welcome to The Economy. How do you measure that? The podcast where we explore the fascinating world of macroeconomic statistics, one transaction at a time. I'm your host, Jim Tebrake. Today we're exploring something that has been making headlines in recent years: citizenship by investment programs. Some countries offer citizenship or passports to foreign nationals in exchange for a financial contribution. These programs can generate significant revenue for governments. But here's the question. When someone pays hundreds of thousands of dollars for a passport, how does that show up in a country's economic statistics? To help us understand this, I'm joined by Prunella Charles-Williams, an expert in balance of payment statistics. Prunella, welcome to the show. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a citizenship by investment program?
Right. So, Jim, Citizenship by Investment Program, which is often called CBI programs, allow persons who are not residents of a country to obtain citizenship by making a significant financial contribution to that country. Now, these contributions generally take two main forms. Persons can either make a direct contribution to a government fund, such as a sustainable growth fund or a national development fund, or they can make an investment in an approved real estate project. Now, there are several different options, but these are generally the main options. Importantly, all of these options offered are accompanied by additional fees, including government application and processing fees, due diligence fees, and these fees that are paid are non-refundable and does not guarantee that the application will be approved. For the contribution to the fund option, once the application is approved, the core contribution that is made by the non-resident is also non-refundable, meaning that the person is not buying an asset that they can later sell. So essentially, they're making a contribution in exchange for the right to obtain citizenship.
Okay, so that's very clear. I mean, absolutely fascinating. So
Yeah.
when you say citizenship by investment, the word investment is in the name. But is that really what it is? Is it an investment?
Well, Jim, interestingly, it's not always an investment, and how it is recorded within the macroeconomic statistics would depend on the option that is selected by the individual. That is whether it is the non-refundable contribution to the fund option or the investment in real estate option. And this distinction is quite critical when we are compiling the macroeconomic statistics. So for the non-refundable contribution to the fund, these payments are not recorded as investments. Instead, they are treated as transfers from the individual to the government or the institution receiving the funds. And this is because the person making the payment does not receive a financial asset or an ownership stake in return for making this contribution. And for the investment option, it is treated as an investment, the investment in real estate, that is, since the applicant is actually acquiring a tangible asset.
Okay, this is starting to become clear, but it becomes clearer to me when we use an example. So let's use an example. So suppose a non-resident provides $500,000 to a government fund. Where does that $500,000 show up in these statistics?
Well, Jim, the 500, just to note that the 500,000 does not necessarily go to a government fund. It all depends on the option that is selected, whether it's a real estate option or whether it's a contribution to the fund option. So usually the real estate option does not go directly to the government. It may go to a private institution or a developer. But this is a pretty good example, quite simplified, but a very good example. So let's walk through it, because the treatment of this 500,000 would be dependent on two things. One, as mentioned, the option that is selected by the non-resident, that is whether it's a fund, contribution to the fund option, or investment in real estate. And if it is a contribution to the fund option, we also have to determine whether or not it is utilized for recurrent expenditure or to fund capital projects. So let's look at the first option. If the 500,000 represents a contribution to the fund and goes into the government's general budget, say it helps to pay for wages and salaries or other budgetary support, then this transaction is recorded as a current transfer from a non-resident to the government. But if the payment is directed to a national development fund that finances infrastructure projects such as building roads, schools, or hospitals, then it would be recorded as a capital transfer. Now, either way, the transaction appears as a credit in the country's balance of payments, and that is because the country is receiving funds from abroad. And of course, there is a corresponding debit entry in the balance of payments in the country of the individual purchasing the citizenship. Now, with option 2, if the 500,000 represents a purchase of real estate, then the value of the property is recorded as direct investment and would be recorded within your financial account. If the 500,000, however, represents a less than 10% stake in an investment project, then it would be recorded as a portfolio investment. And of course, all the associated fees for both investment options are recorded separately as services or transfers, depending on the nature of the fees that are paid.
That's amazing. I mean, that, one simple example and so many things that you have to think about as a balance of payments
Correct.
compiler, as a government statistician, to say, yeah, where do we put all these things? How do we classify them? And wow, this has been fascinating. I want to really thank you for joining us. So the next time you read about someone obtaining citizenship through a financial contribution, remember, in the macroeconomic accounts, it's not always treated as an investment. Instead, it could be recorded as a transfer from a non-resident to the government, classified either as a current transfer or a capital transfer, depending on how the funds are used and the investment option taken. So thanks to Prunella for helping us understand how statisticians measure citizenship by investment programs. And remember, behind every passport issued under a citizenship program, there's a statistician like Prunella figuring out how to measure it.